Hello guys, my name is Marc from jazzguitarlessons.net. Improve your jazz guitar playing with a real teacher, and welcome to this lesson on ending your chord melodies. So one of the typical challenges we have when playing standards is that chord melodies will end with the root. That is, the melody of the standard you're playing is ending with the root. Case in point, we have Body and Soul in the key of D flat, which ends like... And when you have that D flat note here, and the only voicing you have is actually a D flat 6, which I don't want to play because it's not 1926 anymore, we need to have strategies and tips to end chord melodies arrangement with the root note being the melody note. So in this short lesson, this is exactly what we're about to do. We're going to go through 4 examples on the 2-5-1, the key of C major, that actually end on the C, but we're not going to end like this, right? We're going to have different tips and strategies. As always, feel free to navigate this lesson. Below here we have the description with the timestamp, so you can navigate the parts of the lesson you're interested in, and as always, there's a blog post here which you can see all the written examples, and you can also download the sheet music to put it on a music stand, print it, and practice these examples. And of course you should do them in different keys. All right, so let's get going with the first example. Here's example 1, where we have a melody note being an E during the D minor 9, so E, and then dum, but we're going to play it like this. And that example is called Bury the Extensions because this is a C chord to which the lowest note is a D, which might make it a little bit harder to hear. So let me sing the melody and see how we can perceive it. And this is interesting because if you play with a bass player or someone or a piano player that takes care of the bass, it's going to get much easier to hear. But for me, this is what I like to do sometimes. If my ear is not sure where's the root, I will just use my thumb, my index like this on the fretboard. Notice that your C note is here. And right next to the C note, you have a B note, which is your open B. So that's the interesting part of the voicing. But your C note is still the highest one, right? One last time. This is a very interesting and modern example. Now on to example number 2. All right, example number 2 is a blues substitution example where instead of ending it on a C major chord, we'll say, what the heck, it's going to be a C13 or a C dominant chord. And this is an octave higher, so we still have our E note. So this is an interesting chord because you guys, you jazz guitarists, you know of the C13 chord, this guy, right? And now often, during my lessons, I'm like, okay, don't play bar chords anymore. Remove that tendency of going like this and covering all the strings. Learn your inversions and play on your top strings. But this is an exception. This is an old Lenny Bro trick where what you play is that 13 chord on top, but you also play the root, so you have to bar it, and you play that note, which is the sharp 11 or the lowered 5th of the scale. And it sounds beautiful because it is what we call a stable sound. Instead of playing if you had a major 7 like this, this is less stable because of this. But by lowering this 7th, so you have the B, you have more juice. So let's play the example again. This is your D minor 9, this is your G13. And then I think I've heard Bill Evans also end on such voicing. So it's like this really heavy 13 sharp 11 chord. Your root is still on top. And you're not playing a blues, but you're substituting this for a song that would end in major. All right? So now on to example number 3. Example number 3 is my favorite because I have to admit no shame, I use it pretty often, and this is something I picked up from Keith Jarrett recording, and I know probably Bill Evans and many piano players use it too. So let's get going. This is a chord substitution with a flat 6, so we have borrowed a chord from C minor, C parallel minor or C Aeolian. Ready? So we have to be aware, and I'm talking to myself, teaching myself, aware not to overuse and abuse this one because it can get old pretty fast. So that's what I played in the introduction of this YouTube lesson actually. And the interesting part with this one is A flat. That chord does not live in the key of, and it's an interesting voicing too, right? It's like, wow, what's happening? So tonic of the scale. So this is the 3rd of A flat. Then we have the 9th of A flat and the 7th. So it's a pretty interesting voice. I love, and in a different condition, you could have that F note on top even, which would call for a different melody note, of course. I love using it, and that's coming from C minor. So if you harmonize all the chords of the C minor scale, at some point you will reach at A flat major. So A flat major comes from there. And then with your G sus, this is a pretty typical voicing, make that note go down a half step, G 13 flat 9, or 13 flat 9, but there's no 13, so it's just a flat 9. And then our melody note now is B note, which is the natural 7th, the major 7th of the C major scale. So we went from, so we're sort of escaping the fact that we want to end on a C melody note, and we're cheating it out a little bit with a little bit of texture. So this one is invaluable. I would recommend you practice this in different keys. And let's go to example number 4 now. All right, example number 4. Now we are still ending on our C note, so we have this. But we're also avoiding our C major chord. We're playing a D flat, which is a half step higher than our root, and then doing another trick similar to example 4 to end on a different note on the C chord. That's the strategy. So let me just play it. Oh no, actually, sorry, it starts here, right? So that's a G sus, 13. So you hear me sing this, and I will get back to a little comment about this at the end of the video. So one more time. In the example, it says F major 7 over G. Another spelling for this is G 13 sus, or sus 4, 13 flat 9, plain D flat major 7. So we end on the sharp 4 of the C major 7 chord. And that might not be part of the standard you're playing on, but that's the beauty of this lesson here, is we want strategies to avoid going, C6 or some other brand of C that we know has a C on top. We want to escape it and provide you with more interesting alternatives. Notice that example 3 and 4, we have landed on a chord that is not the tonic. So in the case of example 4 was D flat. In the case of example 3 was A flat. And then we sort of say, okay, we're here. Let me recap that and actually land on a C to satisfy our ears. And then you're free to sort of improvise a little bit of a chord melody on this. So that's it for the examples. Please do let me know if you have any questions about the 4 of them. I know I went by fast. Take them, take the PDF, print them, and practice, and see if you can come up with different examples and strategies to end on not a C6 chord with the root on your chord melody. All right, a quick note in this lesson before I let you go. So we've done some sort of crazy things with chord melody, and if this went over your head, there's a lot of theory on the jazzguitarlessons.net website that you might want to go to. In the third example, we use this A flat chord in the key of C, which is borrowing from C Aeolian, and from the D flat we are borrowing from what we could call C Phrygian. So this concept of borrowing means that any mode of C can be borrowed. And I'm not talking about the modes of the C major scale. I'm talking of the modes of the major scale from C root, which is a different thing. Basically, you wind up with way more than 7 chords because of the color palette that you can explore with that. So if all of this went over your head, I want to bring you up to speed with what chord melody is. Of course, chord melody, in a sense, is this way of playing a melody and keeping the harmony going with chords underneath. So this is pretty easy for piano players because they just play the melody in the right hand and comp chords with the left hand. I know this is an oversimplification, but for guitarists, it's even more challenging because number one, we don't have a sustain pedal, and number two, we can only play 6 notes at a time at best. When we do full bars like that chord in the second example, this is the best we can do. So chord melody is this fine art, and I would say for guitarists, the art in and of itself is more about maintaining a melody going. And that's why throughout the 4 examples in this lesson, we got a simple melody. And that's why you hear me singing it, because the best expression of jazz guitarist, and any jazz guitarist worth his own weight in salt will tell you, well, you need to be able to play standards and accompany yourself, even not standards, but songs. You need to be able to reflect both the melody and the harmony. The harmony is important. The harmony is like the road, but the melody is the driver of it. You need to make the melody be in the forefront of the listener's mind and your own mind. So that's what happens. And I don't know why I'm thinking of Pat Metheny right now, who recorded some solo albums. And even if he goes in doing crazy things with the harmony, he will always put the melody in the foreground, or at least state it several times so that it's clear in our minds what he's doing. And then he can go and substitute and do different rhythmic things, and it's still very consistent. One of the problems with, I think, intermediate and advanced players even is that they play so many chords, and you sort of lose track of what the melody is. And melody is a pretty big deal, because when you're in the shower and you sing something, you have something stuck in your ears, in your mind, like, oh, this song, you're singing the melody. That's what you're singing. So that's why it's really important to keep the melody in the foreground. Now, one last comment to define what chord melody is. Well, jazz guitar, quote unquote, of course, has a component of improvisation. So you must know your scales and be able to make sense of improvising with scales over chord changes on standards or on blues, and being quick on the draw, going like, oh yeah, this is that chord, and I can still make a melody on the spot that still fits the chord. That's one of the part. The other part is, of course, to being an accompanist, like, being able to accompany a singer or another soloist with chords, because like piano, you are a harmonic instrument, so you need to do that. But chord melody is, in a way, would be the last frontier, because I know a lot of guys that are really good soloists. They can solo, improvise good lines, and they can accompany well. But then if you would hear them in a chord melody context, it'd be mediocre at best. So it'd be good, but not like we constantly hear the melody and everything. They would struggle to do that. So I will encourage you to take a look at that for your own playing. On the website, over the past few years, we've published a lot of chord melody stuff. So there's Chord Melody Crash Course, Chord Melody Beyond Top Notes, and Chord Melody Mastery, which are 3 video courses. And of course, this is just for giving you the foundations of it, because some people push it, like Lenny Bro would push it to an extent where he can just basically play solo and it's the best thing you've ever heard all the time. That's like pushed to a really, really extreme level. Like, this is like the Olympics of jazz. But to me, just having a good jazz guitarist should be able to play trio, duo, and still play the melody, and we'll have a notion of what the chords are under it. All right, enough talking. Thank you for joining me, guys. There's a lot of YouTube lessons, and I'm really glad you chose that one. I should have said that at the beginning of the video. I typically do, right? So thank you. There's plenty more lessons on jazzguitarlessons.net/blog. Also, please subscribe to this YouTube channel to make sure you don't miss any of the updates, because we do publish a lot of content, and I will see you soon in the next video lesson. Take care.